I accidentally overheard a secret, and now my whole life makes sense. It was one of those ordinary Tuesday afternoons, the kind where everything feels a little too familiar, like a soundtrack that's been playing on repeat for far too long. I sat at my desk, my fingers idly tracing the rim of my coffee mug, watching the sunlight filter through the blinds. The world outside seemed so calm, and yet, somehow, I felt off, like I was missing a piece of the puzzle that was my life. The office was eerily quiet. A few hushed conversations bubbled up from the other side of the room, but nothing worth eavesdropping on. Just typical office chatter. Everyone was buried in their work, lost in their own little worlds. Everyone except me. I didn't know what it was, but lately I'd felt like I was walking through life as if I were sleepwalking, never fully awake. I glanced around the room, noticing the usual faces. Kate from marketing, Dave from accounting, and Sarah, who was always so absorbed in her spreadsheets that she barely noticed the world around her. Everyone had their own rhythm, their own sense of purpose. But me? I felt like I was just drifting. That's when I heard it. It was soft at first, just the faint murmur of voices coming from the break room around the corner. I wasn't paying much attention at first, my mind still wandering between thoughts of coffee breaks and deadlines. But then a few words caught my ear. And those words changed everything. I'm telling you, we can't keep hiding it forever. It was Kate's voice. She was talking to someone, but I couldn't make out who it was. I hesitated for a moment, not wanting to seem like I was eavesdropping. But then, curiosity pricked at me, a quiet tug that I couldn't ignore. I got up from my desk, pretending to stretch as I passed by the break room. I knew it wasn't the best idea to eavesdrop, but my feet carried me closer anyway, drawn by the mystery of the conversation. My heart thudded a little faster, not from fear of getting caught, but from something else. A sense of anticipation, as if I were about to uncover a secret that had been hidden just for me. I turned the corner just in time to catch Kate's next words. I know it's been years, but if we don't tell her now, it's only going to get worse. My breath caught in my throat. Her? I didn't know who they were talking about, but it didn't sound like they were discussing some minor office gossip. This was serious. Kate's voice grew softer, almost a whisper now. She deserves to know the truth, even if it changes everything. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. The truth. What truth? I felt a sudden wave of nausea. Something about it felt personal. Something about this conversation was about me. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to make myself as small as possible, my heart racing in my chest. I didn't dare move. I couldn't. She's not going to like it, said a new voice, one I didn't recognize. It was a man's voice, deep and calm, like someone who'd seen and heard it all before. But it's the only way. It's been too long. She'll have to understand, Kate replied, her voice tight. We don't have a choice anymore. I stood there, paralyzed, my mind racing. My life, my whole life had suddenly felt like it was on the edge of unraveling, like something I had never understood before was about to become clear. I stepped back, barely breathing. My mind screamed for answers, but my body froze, refusing to give me the courage to push forward. What were they talking about? Who was she? What truth was out there that involved me but I had never known about? I retreated back to my desk, my head spinning. I sat down, but I couldn't focus on the screen. All I could think about were those words. She deserves to know the truth. The truth about what? And why was it so urgent? So secretive? The clock ticked on, but the minutes felt like hours. I glanced at my phone, but there was no message, no clue. I wasn't even sure who to ask. What if I was wrong? What if I had misheard something? What if this was just some random office gossip that had nothing to do with me? But deep down, I knew I hadn't misheard. I had heard exactly what they said. And now I couldn't shake the feeling that my entire life had been a lie. A carefully constructed illusion that was about to come crashing down. It wasn't until later that afternoon, when the office started to quiet down and most people had packed up to go home, that I found myself standing in front of Kate's desk. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but something inside me, something urgent, told me I couldn't leave it alone. I needed answers. "Hey, Kate," I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice trembled slightly. "Can we talk?" She looked up from her computer screen, her expression unreadable. She opened her mouth as if to say something, then closed it again, studying me. It felt like she knew exactly what I was thinking. "Sure," she said finally, her voice almost too calm. "What's on your mind?" I swallowed hard, trying to summon the words that would explain everything. "Earlier, in the break room, I overheard you talking about someone needing to know the truth. About me." Kate stiffened, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. "You heard that?" I nodded, my pulse hammering in my ears. "I did. And now I need to know what it's about. What truth? What's going on?" She hesitated, glancing toward the door as if checking to see if anyone else was around. Finally, she leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. "This isn't something I wanted to tell you this way, but I guess it's time. You're not going to believe it, but you've got to know." My heart skipped a beat. This was it. The truth. The one that had been hidden all my life. Kate took a deep breath and spoke the words that changed everything. "Your real name isn't what you think it is, and everything you've known about your past is a lie." The words hit me like a thunderclap, shaking me to my core. I felt my breath catch in my throat, a cold sweat breaking out along my spine. "My real name?" I echoed, barely able to process what Kate had just said. Kate nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. There was an unsettling seriousness in her gaze, like she was bracing herself for my reaction. I could feel my heart racing, each beat louder than the last, as if my body was trying to warn me of something I wasn't ready to hear. "Kate, what are you talking about? What do you mean my name isn't what I think it is?" I felt like I was drowning in confusion. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating, and my mind was scrambling for any clue that could make sense of this. She sighed deeply, rubbing her forehead as if trying to find the right words. "I know this is a lot to take in, but you deserve the truth. All of it." She looked around, checking if anyone was close enough to overhear. The office was mostly empty now, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still being watched. Kate leaned forward, her voice barely audible. "Your real name is Emily Harper. You were adopted when you were 5. Your parents, they're not the ones who raised you." My entire world tilted. My mind spun. The name Emily Harper hit me like a foreign language, like it belonged to someone else, someone I had never heard of. I blinked, trying to understand, but the more she spoke, the more my world seemed to unravel. I I was adopted?" I whispered, barely able to make the words come out of my mouth. "But why didn't anyone tell me? Why didn't my parents say anything?" Kate's face softened with a touch of sympathy, but it didn't calm my storm of emotions. "Your adoptive parents, Lynn and Mark, had their reasons. But the truth is, they weren't the ones who decided to keep you. You were chosen by someone else. Someone who has been keeping a secret from you for your entire life." My head was spinning, and I had to clutch the edge of the desk to steady myself. Who? Who's been keeping a secret from me? Who am I, really? I was choking on the questions, desperate for answers that Kate seemed reluctant to give. Kate hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "It's not just about your name. You were part of something bigger, something that was supposed to stay hidden. You're not just anyone, Emily." She said my name, but it sounded strange, like it wasn't mine. "Your real family. They were important. Very important. They made a choice. They gave you up for a reason." I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Why would they give me up? Why me? Kate stood up then, pacing the small space in front of her desk. "It wasn't because they didn't want you. It was for your protection. There are people who would have done anything to find you, and they still might. I could feel the blood drain from my face as the words began to settle in. Protection? From what? From who? My voice was trembling now. This wasn't just a simple family secret. This was something far darker, something I didn't want to even imagine. Your parents were part of an underground network, a group that worked to protect people like you, people who have abilities, special abilities. Kate's words were slow, deliberate, like she was afraid of scaring me further. Abilities? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. I felt like I was in a dream, like none of this was real. But the way Kate was looking at me, the urgency in her eyes told me it was. You have a gift, Emily, she said, stepping closer. And that's why your real family had to hide you. They knew there were people out there who would use you for their own purposes. You were meant to be something extraordinary, something more than just an average person living an average life. I took a step back, my head swimming with confusion. This is insane. You're saying I have some kind of superpower? Kate shook her head slowly. Not exactly. But you're not normal, Emily. And the truth is, your entire life was a carefully constructed lie to keep you safe. Your parents didn't just raise you. They protected you. They made sure you grew up without knowing the truth. Until now. I felt the walls closing in on me. The air around me felt heavy, suffocating, like I couldn't get enough oxygen. I clutched the edge of the desk, trying to steady myself as my thoughts raced. What was happening? Was this a joke? Was someone playing a cruel trick on me? Kate stepped back, her face softened with something like guilt. I know this is hard to hear. Believe me, I never wanted to be the one to tell you. But it's time, Emily. The truth can't stay hidden any longer. It's time for you to know who you really are, and why you felt like something's been missing from your life all these years. I felt tears pricking at the corners of my eyes, but I blinked them away. I couldn't let this break me. Not yet. There had to be something more. Something that made sense of all of this. How do you know all of this? I asked, my voice shaking with the weight of the question. Kate looked away, her expression conflicted. I was part of the network that helped keep you safe. I've been watching over you for years, making sure nothing happened to you. But the time has come for you to take your place. And to do that, you'll need to meet someone who can explain everything. Your real family, the ones who can tell you everything about your abilities, and what comes next. I was reeling, my thoughts crashing together in a whirlwind. My whole life had been a lie. I wasn't who I thought I was. My parents weren't my parents. And now I had abilities. I had to meet these people, these strangers who were supposed to explain everything, to make it all make sense. But part of me was terrified of what that might mean. Kate gave me a final, meaningful look. I know it's a lot, Emily, but you have to trust me. You're not alone in this. And now that you know the truth, there's no turning back. I felt my stomach twist into knots. Everything I thought I knew about myself had just shattered. And the scariest part? I didn't know what came next. But there was one thing I was sure of. My life, as I knew it, was over. The real story of who I was had only just begun. The weight of Kate's words hung in the air like a dense fog, thick and suffocating. I stood there in a daze, trying to absorb the reality of everything she had just told me. The world around me felt like it had been flipped upside down, and I was struggling to find my footing. Meet them? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Who are they? My real family? Where do I even begin? Kate's face was etched with concern, but there was a determined edge in her eyes. I can't give you all the answers, Emily. Not yet. But there's someone you need to meet. Someone who can guide you through all of this. They've been waiting for you. Waiting for me? I repeated, the words tasting foreign on my tongue. Why? For what? Kate hesitated, glancing toward the door as if checking for anyone else who might overhear. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. Your abilities, Emily. They're not just something random. They're part of who you are, part of your family's legacy. They're why everything has been so strange. Why you've always felt like there's something more to your life. I felt my heart race, and a strange sensation began to grow in my chest. Fear, yes, but also curiosity, a deep need to know. What do you mean by legacy? What kind of abilities are we talking about here? Kate glanced around once more, making sure no one was in earshot. Then she took a step back, as if preparing herself for what she was about to say. You can't control it yet, but you will. Soon. Your ability is one that hasn't been seen in a long time, Emily. You have the power to manipulate memories. You can erase them, change them, even create new ones. It's a gift, yes, but it's dangerous. And that's why they had to hide you. Because there are people out there who would use your power for evil. I felt the floor beneath me wobble, and I had to clutch the desk again to steady myself. My mind spun as her words sunk in, like a jumbled mess of thoughts that didn't quite fit together. Memories? I echoed, trying to wrap my head around it. I can change memories? Are you serious? Kate's eyes softened with a mixture of empathy and caution. Yes, but it's not something you can just turn on and off, Emily. It's something you need to learn to control, or it could spiral out of your control. And when that happens, it could cause more harm than you can imagine. That's why you need to meet the people who can help you harness it. The room felt like it was shrinking around me, the walls pressing in as I fought to make sense of everything. I had spent my whole life feeling like something was wrong. Something didn't quite fit. But this was a nightmare come true. My entire identity, my name, my family, even the way I had lived my life, was a lie. And now I was supposed to believe that I had powers, that I could control memories. I wasn't sure if I was losing my mind or if this was real. What do I do now? I asked, my voice trembling. How do I even begin to understand all of this? Where do I go? Kate's gaze softened, and for the first time, I saw a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. I can help you, but I can't do this alone. You need to trust me, Emily. You're not the only one who's been living a lie. There are others like you, people who are still out there, who don't even know who they are yet. And your real family, the ones who kept you safe. They'll explain everything when the time is right. But for now, there's someone you need to meet. Who? I demanded, desperate for anything that could make sense of this madness. His name is Alex, she said quietly, her expression serious. He's been waiting for you. He's the one who knows how to unlock your abilities and help you understand your past. He'll be able to guide you. How do I find him? I asked, my mind racing with 1,000 questions. But Kate was already standing, gathering her things as if she had done this before, like she had known this moment was coming all along. I'll give you the details, but Emily, you need to leave. Now this place isn't safe for you anymore, Kate said urgently, her tone taking on a sharp edge. Once you leave here, there's no going back. The people who are looking for you won't stop until they find you. They'll do anything to control your abilities. Fear gripped me again, tighter than before. I felt the blood drain from my face. Who's looking for me? Who are these people? Kate paused for a moment, her face tightening as if she was trying to keep something hidden. I wish I could tell you more, but I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. But I do know this. You're in danger. And if you want to survive, you need to go with Alex. He's your best chance. My chest tightened with panic, but somewhere deep down, a spark of defiance ignited. No longer was I going to be a passive observer in my own life. The answers I had been searching for had been right in front of me all along, and now I was finally on the brink of discovering the truth. I took a deep breath, forcing my hands to stop trembling. Where do I find him? Kate scribbled something on a scrap of paper and handed it to me. This is the address. Go there tonight. Don't tell anyone and don't trust anyone else. I'll be in touch when I can. I nodded, taking the paper from her. My hands were clammy, but I forced myself to hold on to it. The address seemed so ordinary, but the weight of it in my hands felt like a key to a door I wasn't sure I wanted to open. "Remember," Kate added, her voice low and serious. "You're not alone in this, but you have to make the decision to trust the right people. And time is running out. They'll be coming for you soon." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing there in the silence of the office. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, but one thing was certain. My life had changed forever. I glanced at the piece of paper in my hand. There was no turning back now. The unknown awaited me. I didn't know what Alex would have to say, or what he would reveal, but I was about to find out. And the truth, no matter how terrifying, was the only thing that could set me free. I stood frozen for a moment, staring at the address written on the scrap of paper, the letters almost swimming in front of my eyes. Alex. Abilities. Danger. The words bounced around in my mind like a swarm of bees, each one stinging harder than the last. There was no going back. The office felt empty now. The lights flickered overhead, the hum of the fluorescent bulbs a constant reminder of how out of place I felt in my own life. I could still hear the faint murmur of the last few colleagues packing up, their voices a soft background noise to my growing panic. But none of it mattered. I didn't belong here anymore. I was no longer just an office worker, sipping coffee and pretending to be content. I was part of something far bigger, far more dangerous. I quickly shoved the piece of paper into my bag, my fingers trembling as I did so. I had to leave. I couldn't stay here. Not with the knowledge that everything I'd ever known was a lie. My real name wasn't even Emily. My parents weren't my parents. And now I had abilities I didn't even understand. Abilities that could change everything. With one last look at the office, I grabbed my coat and left. The cool air outside hit me like a slap in the face, and I breathed it in deeply, trying to steady myself. The address Kate had given me wasn't far, just a few blocks away, but it felt like a lifetime to get there. I walked fast, my shoes clicking against the pavement, the city around me buzzing with its usual evening rush. But none of it felt real anymore. I passed the familiar street corners, the same cafes, the same storefronts I'd walked past 1,000 times before. Everything looked the same, but it was as if I were seeing it all for the first time, through a lens of fear and uncertainty. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting someone to be following me. The thought that there were people out there, people who might be hunting me, was enough to make my skin crawl. But no one was there, or at least no one I could see. I tried to tell myself that Kate was just being paranoid, that everything was fine, but deep down, I knew she wasn't. There was a truth here that I couldn't ignore. After what felt like an eternity, I arrived at the address. The building was an old brick structure, tucked away on a quiet street. It looked out of place, unremarkable, almost hidden. My heart pounded in my chest as I stood in front of the door, my hand hovering over the doorbell. What was I doing here? Was I making a huge mistake? But then I remembered Kate's words. Trust the right people. I pressed the doorbell. Seconds later, the door creaked open, revealing a man in his mid-30s with dark, tousled hair and piercing blue eyes. His expression was unreadable, but his presence was calming somehow. There was something about him that made me feel like I wasn't walking into a trap. "You must be Emily," he said, his voice low but warm. "Come in." I hesitated, my mind racing. "Alex?" He nodded, stepping aside to let me through. "Yes, you're safe here. For now." I stepped inside and the door clicked shut behind me. The room I entered was simple, minimalist. Soft lighting cast a warm glow and the scent of incense hung in the air. But it was the photographs on the walls that caught my attention. They were all of people. Older photos in black and white. Families, children, some of them smiling, some of them serious, but all with an air of quiet dignity. Alex followed my gaze, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Those are people from the network. People who were once just like you, normal, unaware. Some of them didn't make it. I swallowed hard. Make it? What do you mean? He sighed and motioned for me to sit. There's a lot I need to explain to you. But before we get into that, you need to understand something. He paused, looking at me seriously. You're not the first person to find out about your abilities, and you won't be the last. There are others out there, people with gifts just like yours. But the difference between you and them is that you've got a choice. I frowned, feeling a wave of confusion rush over me. A choice about what? Alex sat down across from me, folding his arms. A choice about what you're going to do with your power. You can either learn to control it and use it for good, or you can let it consume you. The people who are after you, they want to control people like us. They'll stop at nothing to turn your ability into a weapon. But you have a chance to change the course of everything, Emily. I leaned forward, my voice shaky. But I don't even know how to control it. I don't understand any of this. How can I possibly make a choice like that? Alex's gaze softened. That's why I'm here. To help you. To teach you how to use your power. You're not alone in this, Emily. You never have been, but you have to decide if you're going to take control of your own fate. I looked at him, searching for some sign that this was all real, that I wasn't losing my mind. But there was no doubt in his eyes. No hesitation. He believed in what he was saying, and for some reason that made me believe too. I don't know if I can do this, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't even know who I am anymore. Alex reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, worn leather notebook. This is for you, he said, handing it to me. It belonged to your real family. It has everything you need to know about your abilities and your past. It's time for you to remember who you are, Emily. But you have to be ready. I took the notebook, my hands shaking. The weight of it felt strangely familiar, like it belonged to me. Like it was a missing piece of myself. I don't know if I'm ready, I admitted, my voice trembling. Alex gave me a small, understanding smile. You don't have to be ready right now, but you will be, in time. I opened the notebook, flipping through the pages. It was filled with notes, diagrams, and old photographs, pieces of a puzzle I had no idea how to solve. But as I looked closer, something inside me clicked. A memory, faint, blurry, began to surface. It was like a spark, igniting something deep within me. The room suddenly felt charged, the air thick with possibility. I didn't know what the future held, or whether I could control what was happening to me. But I knew one thing for sure. My life was no longer my own. It belonged to something much bigger, something I couldn't even begin to understand. And I was about to find out just how deep this rabbit hole went. Alex stood up, his expression turning serious once more. We don't have much time, Emily. They're already looking for you. And when they find you, it won't just be your life at risk. It'll be everyone's. Are you ready to step into your future? I took a deep breath, looking at the notebook in my hands, feeling the weight of the decision in the pit of my stomach. No, I whispered. But I don't think I have a choice anymore. And with that, my journey into a world I never knew existed began. The words echoed in my mind as Alex's gaze bore into me. You don't have a choice anymore. In that moment, it hit me that he was right. There was no turning back. Everything I thought I knew about my life had been shattered, and the truth was far more complicated and dangerous than I could have ever imagined. The notebook in my hands felt heavy, like the weight of 1,000 unspoken secrets. And Alex wasn't just some stranger. He was a part of this world I never knew existed, a world I had unwittingly been born into. You'll need to understand the full scope of your abilities before they come for you, Alex said, his voice low and serious. The people who want to control you, they're ruthless. They'll stop at nothing to use you as a weapon. If you want to protect yourself and everyone else, you need to be prepared. I nodded slowly, still reeling from everything he'd said. How do I even begin to learn this? How do I control something I don't even understand? Alex gave a small, knowing smile like he'd expected this question. First, we start with the basics. It's all about control, Emily. Your ability to manipulate memories is more than just a power. It's a responsibility. You can't just alter someone's mind on a whim, or the consequences could be catastrophic. And it's not just about erasing memories. It's about what you can create, too. I shuddered at the thought. What do you mean by creating memories? Alex's eyes darkened slightly, the weight of his words settling in the air. You can make someone believe something that never happened. You can make them forget things they once knew. But if you're not careful, you can alter someone's sense of self, their entire reality. You could trap them in a lie forever. I felt my stomach twist at the thought. The power to shape someone's entire life, just by manipulating their memories? It was terrifying. But it was also seductive in its potential. The idea that I could change everything, rewrite reality itself, it was overwhelming. But as much as I was frightened by it, I couldn't ignore the pull. This was a part of me, a part I had to understand. How do I even begin to control something like that? I asked, my voice trembling. How do I stop myself from destroying someone's life by accident? Alex stood up, walking over to a nearby shelf filled with books and papers. You don't control it by force, Emily. You control it by understanding it. You need to learn the way your mind works, the way you perceive memories. The more you understand yourself, the easier it will be to harness your power. And trust me, he added, turning back to face me with a knowing look. The first step is going to be the hardest. You need to face your own memories. I swallowed hard. What do you mean, face my own memories? He picked up a small, unassuming object from the shelf and brought it over to the table where I was sitting. It was a simple glass orb, about the size of a marble, with a faint glow emanating from within. This, he explained, is a memory sphere. It allows you to revisit and manipulate your own memories. It's the safest way to start. By going through your own memories first, you'll get a feel for how your power works without risking someone else's life. I stared at the orb, a mix of curiosity and apprehension twisting in my chest. I have to relive my memories? All of them? Not all of them, Alex said, but the important ones, the ones that will help you understand how to control it. The memories that shaped you, that define you. You've already started to feel the pull of your ability, Emily. You've been suppressing it for years, but now it's time to let it out. I hesitated, staring at the orb as it seemed to pulse with an almost magnetic force. Was I ready to confront my past? To dive into the deepest recesses of my mind? Part of me wanted to say no, to run away from this terrifying truth. But I couldn't. Not anymore. I took a deep breath and extended my hand toward the orb. As soon as my fingers touched the smooth surface, I felt a jolt of energy surge. It was like a rush of static electricity, sharp and electric, shooting through my body, straight to my core. The world around me seemed to melt away as I was pulled into a memory. I was 5 years old again. A small child, holding my mother's hand as we walked through a park. The sun was shining and everything felt so normal. The memory felt comforting and familiar, but something was wrong. I could feel the tug of unease, the way the edges of this memory didn't quite fit. My mother's face was blurry. Her features were indistinct, as if she were a shadow, fading in and out of focus. I reached out, trying to hold on to her, but the image wavered. Then it flickered, and suddenly I was in another memory. I was in a car, looking out the window as we drove through a dark, empty road. My adoptive parents, Lynn and Mark, were in the front seats talking quietly. Their voices seemed muffled like they were far away, but their faces were clear, their expressions tense. I remember this moment, vividly. But now I could hear the urgency in their voices, the fear that wasn't there before. She doesn't know, does she? Mark asked in a whisper. No, Lynn replied. We're keeping it that way. It's safer if she doesn't know the truth. The words hit me like a physical blow, and I gasped. I tried to speak, to ask what they were talking about, but no sound came from my mouth. The memory was fading, slipping through my fingers like water. I jerked my hand back from the orb, my heart pounding in my chest. I was gasping for air, overwhelmed by the intensity of what I had just experienced. The memory wasn't just a flash. It was like a revelation. You see? Alex said quietly, his voice calm amid my chaos. You can see the truth now. The layers of your past that were hidden from you. But you have to be careful, Emily. Your mind can deceive you too. Not all memories are as they seem. I stared at him, the weight of what I had just seen sinking in. What does it mean? Why didn't they tell me? What was I supposed to be? Alex's expression grew more serious. That's a question only you can answer, but you have to be prepared for the truth no matter what it is. Because once you start uncovering your past, it won't stop. You'll find things you're not ready to see. And once you do, there's no going back. I nodded, my chest tight with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. I had just opened a door to a past I wasn't sure I wanted to know. But now that it was open, I couldn't ignore the pull to step through it. I had started this journey, and now I had no choice but to see it through.